Good evening, folks. I'm Nick Tucker with the Historical Fencing Guild. Before we get into tonight's program, I have a few folks to thank. First of all, my amazing Patreon members, Off in the Woods, Frog G, Ronald, Riehn, Bladed Thesis, Brian K. Morris, Cindy Koepp, Steve Agosto, John Dulas, Angelina, Vaquera-Linke, Joe and Trilaina, Bachman, Richard Asplund Jr., and the lovely Cat Rothermel. I really could not do what I do without their continued support, and I am working on putting together the programs that I want to record for my patrons that will be available on my oft-neglected Patreon site, because I spend so much of my time doing what I do right here. We're also made possible by sales of the Simple Sword, the Fighting Axe, and the Simple Spear, all part of my ongoing series of Western martial arts manuals designed to help you go from never handling a sword to teaching the art to others. And of course, our broadcasts are all made possible with the support of our good friends over at the Independent Creator Directory. That's IndieCD.org, your one-stop shop for the best and the brightest authors, artists, and musicians. And if you are looking to join their number and have a place where you can be hosted, consider going to that link. Now, hi all. I actually have some stuff I want to talk about tonight. It's been quite a week for Historical Fencing Guild matters. I did receive some interesting questions that we're going to go into in just a moment. But first off, I want to talk about an announcement. I am in the process right now of negotiating to get something made. As people know, give me a second because I am still cleaning and setting things up back here. This is my favorite sword ever. This is my Bilbao. It is a Spanish, technically would be a broadsword, between 24 and 30-inch blade. I've measured this a couple times. I always forget the length. Rapier-style grip with the extended, what did they call it? Sheep's head? I mean, it's a really strange named guard. Now, this is, of course, a Toledo wall hanger. It is Spanish, though. Blessed are the Spaniards. And I have loved this sword for many, many years, and there are only 2 or 3 companies that make live steel versions of this that can be purchased. It is a fairly rare, but rather historically relevant weapon. And again, quite literally my favorite sword. I am in negotiations with Kristen Dorse over at Purple Heart Armory, and I'm going to hold up a link in just a second for those good folks. Woodenswords.com. Put this little end bit. Whenever you go, make sure this end bit is there, especially if you purchase. I get a small kickback, but it also helps you guys. Sorry. I've been speaking with him, and it will not likely be till after Christmas, so we are talking months away, early next year. But there is a chance of him making a proper training Bilbao, a synthetic bladed Bilbao. This would, of course, be, this is one of those lifetime blades, and it will be rather expensive for me, but I have to replace all my gear because over the many years I have bought gear, and every time it comes time to upgrade my own personal gear, unless I am trying on stuff that I've acquired at like yard sales, I end up giving, or I have in the past ended up giving large parts of it away to people who need it. And after several years of making sure that my loaner gear is in better shape than my personal gear, both Mandy and I have realized it is time for me to make sure that I have adequate gear for what we do, and that I take the time and eventual money to do it to upgrade it in such a way that it will be safe. And I am for once in 25 years, going on about a quarter century of teaching people sword fight, I'm actually prioritizing my own gear. It's a strange feeling. I am baffled and uncomfortable with the prospect of looking at gear from I'm not trying to buy 4 of them or 10 of them for training and, to pass on, but to go to myself. So I figured if I'm chasing it, it's going to be the weapon I have been looking for a long time. So that is something that is going to be significant for me. I will be saving up to be able to afford, the results, and I'm hoping Mr. Dorst does so. If you have the means, please reach out to him and ask about both the Italian tactical side sword, because he set that up for me, and they're not. It's not on the market. It's not on the store anymore. But I'd like to see it come back. I wouldn't mind ordering some in his new lighter plastics than the ones I have it in. I'd also, obviously, the Bilbao project. This is why it's so important for you guys, when you feel like sword shopping and you're looking at trainers and books and things, to please check out the wares of Purple Heart Armory. Especially with the tariffs that are going on and the shipping insanity, it really is the best place for any of your plastic style trainers. I would put it, PHA, then Amazon with the, I want to say, Jiaowu polypropylene trainers, and then the fancier places like South Coast Swords / Black Fencer. I am also, at least for the foreseeable future, suggesting people stay away from the steel trainers, especially the more concussive ones, because across the board I am seeing more and more cases of very well-known makers failing. Their trainers are failing. They're breaking. They're not holding up. And people are having puncture failures and getting stabbed. I cannot sit idly by and not mention that. So we're going to be working towards some gear changes around here. I also have a few students who are, several of my gamers are approaching the age of adulthood. They are 18 or nearly 18, which means I will have to, probably starting either this winter, doing guided work into this spring and, the 2026, I'll be starting that over. And I may also be doing what I consider organizational research, so that should they decide they want to go out and play more elsewhere, I can hand them information of local groups. That will be an interesting adventure on my part, bit of research, because as you guys know, I need more on my plate. But that's the first set of things. My second set / or else I need to talk. I might not seem like I'm myself right now. I'm a little diminished, and that is because I was bitten by something, some type of insect or spider, and I reacted rather badly to it for my levels of reaction, and I've had to take some medicine to treat that. I have to keep an eye on it, but because I've taken that grade of medicine, I'm a little drowsier than usual. So we're going to have to work through the fog. And that's okay. That is a necessity. We're going to make that happen. That's how we roll in these parts. But I need to check the comments because I've ignored the comments for a bit. And then we'll go into what's going on. First to the door is Grim. Hello, Grim. I was just obviously thinking about you. I had the pleasure of seeing you and a few other folks recently, and I had such a wonderful time, but that did put you guys on my mind, so to speak. So yes, I'm trying to get the practice stuff put together to get training going for basically the folks at the library who have politely requested it for self-defense. So that is coming. I've not forgotten my word. You're not 18 yet, so you couldn't start anyway. So yeah, but nothing stopping you from reading books. So am I okay? Thank you for asking. As I said, I am dealing with a reaction to a bite that really, honestly, has messed me up quite a bit. I have to keep an eye on it to prevent further issues, but yeah, and because I had to take a Benadryl. The fact I took a Benadryl and I'm a little drowsy, but I'm not laid out on the couch, speaks wonders to just how unpleasant my reaction to this bug bite is. It happens. We are going to move forward through it, and it looks like we've got our first bot of the night. And and Dave. Hey, Houston Dave. I'm sorry, it sounds like there might be one of the cats stuck in here. How are you? Hello, while grocery shopping. Enjoy grocery shopping. I'd love to be out of the house. I've been in here a while. But, so, guys, I'm very excited about the Bilbao as an option. And hello, Dawn. Chasing this particular sword is a major challenge because it is from the town of Bilbo, which, well, it's one of the pronunciations of the sword name. And every time you go looking for that, you are likely to find recreations of Sting, the sword from Lord of the Rings, which I have no problem with. I quite like the one I have. I wouldn't mind a second. However, when you're trying to chase a historical weapon, it can be challenging, especially since it's a historical weapon with ties to a language I do not speak. Spanish is far too close to Latin, and my brain starts to short circuit. It may be able to in the near future, but right now I am rather swamped, and I don't think I can take up another language. I know you guys don't think I'm doing enough, but I'm being sarcastic. We have a lot going on from my other aspects of what I do, and I'm just trying to get things out here settled. The weather's been so strange, and my health has been so strange that I desperately want to fire up my forge. I desperately want to build the new Pels, and fairly soon I will be cashing in some points with my brother and a few other people to help me do so, and then hopefully we'll have more pre-recorded content videos for you. The pre-recorded stuff takes a huge amount of time relative to the live streams. And it's much easier to get content out just simply live streaming. But getting content out simply live streaming in a physical manner is a little dubious. So, if we can find the window where the weather's not too bad and I have access to my amazing colleagues and friends, we'll get some more sparring videos. As I get the students, I will probably be able to run videos of what they are up to. It's important. Now, this is going to feed very much into why I'm talking today. Basically, I had the challenge issued to me, well-meaning in a conversation. What is the value in the way I train and what I train? And it was one of those where it was not meant hurtfully. It was from one of my more practical-minded associates. And I need to use the term associates and acquaintances far more than I do, because there are a lot of people in my life who I know, but I don't, and I call them friends, but they don't behave like friends, so I don't really think they deserve the fullness of that title, if that makes any sense. That being said, what I explained was the system I teach being mostly codified in the Simple Sword and the Fighting Axe and the Simple Spear, all available through Amazon, #alwayspromote, is not simply about learning to fence or sword fight. It is about learning how to engage with your own body in a practical and rational way, ensuring that you have the capacity and the wherewithal to prevent issues and deal with them as they come. And what I do, people aren't realizing, because I don't talk about it almost ever, but the way I approach teaching fencing can be interpreted to open hand. It can be interpreted to a variety of purpose-built and improvised tools of defense. And note, I am trying to even avoid using the term weaponry in this conversation, because by saying weaponry, people take that as an offensive intent. And that is rarely, if ever, my purpose. What I want to build for my students, for my friends, for the people who qualify there and more, both categories and more, is a means to not only preempt the vast majority of conflicts through constant vigilance, but through constant applied vigilance, deflate the sense of hypervigilance that can come from trauma. Remember, the vast majority of my students are non-traditional students. The vast majority of people I've worked with are people who have endured mental, physical, or sexual abuse, self-harm, suicide attempts. I started to try to candy coat it for the streams because a lot of them don't like these words, but these words matter. It's important that when we are having a real adult conversation that we use the proper terminology. I still believe words matter. I still believe ideas matter. It's done with the hope of hello, Dave. Dave's talking to fellow sorts of preventing, de-escalating, and then neutralizing a threat. Okay? This is why I always train from the perspective of a melee combat out far more than the intention of the fine duel things. We have one-on-one sparring for educational purposes a lot. But whenever possible, I want to encourage group combat. And the reason for that is so that you never get that tunnel vision that so many people get when they are in a physical conflict. If there's a physical altercation, either it is a planned, structured, and supervised physical altercation, such as sparring, open-handed martial arts, classical fencing, whatever. A whole lot of that will actually run akin to the lessons one picks up when studying marksmanship, of hyper-focusing your attention on one person. What are they doing? What am I doing? And having your body trained that all you're doing, your goal is a state of no thought, which I love that no thought. What does the no thought mean? You learn the simple actions and you drill them slowly, over and over, consistently. And you do it so that it becomes a pattern. It is a neurological pattern that's somewhere between your brain and your body, between your brain and nerves. That way, when you are fencing, when you are sword fighting, when you are, again, dealing with physical altercation, your purpose consciously is to take in the information. Okay? The world around you is coming in. All the tools, all the scenery, any threats, any opportunities. Your brain's tracking for the purpose of victory conditions, chief among them being survival. But your body at this process is simply doing it. And as somebody who is by nature aggressively opposed to learning by rote, it does not work with me mentally. Like, it's very hard for me to memorize things in a certain way. I have to understand them and many times work the process that gets me there rather than just memorize it. It's how my brain retains knowledge. But my body is very good at, when given significant repeated motion, allowing the reactions to come out as they should, doing what they should. This is why you drill observed, why I always encourage you guys to bare minimum do it in front of a mirror. Much better is to do it on camera or both, where you have like your phone pointed at the mirror and you are doing your drills. I am not saying you need to publish that. I am not saying you need to save that. You can, but what I'm saying is you need to do this so that you can track your own progress and you can see, as you learn, your own mistakes. This is what part of why you need partners. One can maintain for the most part, their skill set, once they have achieved it in a solo fashion with very limited reflexes, very limited external stimuli. What do I mean? I don't need a person. I can quote unquote shadow box and do so fairly effectively. I do. It is part of my drills. It is an unspoken part because it is very diagnostic for me. I go through my drills, I see how I'm moving. And then there's that part after I've done my drills, before I do my physical therapy, where it looks like I'm playing, where I'm just flowing. And what I'm doing is I'm moving my body, I'm finding what's working, what's not. Are my parries going to completion or are they falling short? Do I need to adjust them to cover what I want to achieve because of some new damage or disability? Constant awareness of my body. It's the only way to progress. I know the aspects that I focus on, that I harp on, that I rhapsodize over are very basic. I am not teaching exceptionally elaborate styles. I am not seeking the fine tuning of one tempo or, can I mirror this hard to pronounce German word as a strike? As I expressed, I don't think that way, and I never have. I have found one of the biggest gatekeeping methods that exist in the study of martial arts, especially, all martial arts, is the proclivity for holding on to the native terms of the speaker to either be historically correct or to sound impressive, and to use that as an identifier and a gatekeeper. When you are looking into this, or from outside or in, when you're looking into swordsmanship and looking into what I teach, I have said many times, the foundation of what I do is that I studied and read the books of a whole bunch of the masters over the years. And I still look into them. And I look into the techniques as expounded by the different Chinese resources I have, or Korean, or whatever I can get my mitts on to sit down, cuddle up, and study. I still do. And I have found over the years, they love to argue about the finer points, the minutia, But the basic rules, especially for people starting out, tend to be similar if the style's been around for a while. And across the board, there are certain basic rules I find in combatives, I find in historical manuals, in modern sport fighting. I find the same concepts in boxing, in Muay Thai, in Meyer Greatsword. And I will always look at it's almost a democratic approach to Western martial arts. And Eastern martial arts have influenced me. I will never say they haven't, but it's much easier for me to explain. I'm coming from a Western martial arts mentality. And the reason for that is in part that I am trying to elaborate upon the style with as little dogma, as little mythology as possible involved. And there is a place for mysticism and spiritualism and any number of isms. And that may, for some people, overlap with their studies. But that isn't my job to teach, nor is it my job to heavily discuss. That's not what I'm here for. What I want to do is make sure that anyone who trains with me for any amount of time can defend themselves well enough to be considered a threat in the face of predatory opponents. And what I mean by predatory opponents, I'm not talking actual opponents where it's like, hey, we want to spar, have a good time. I'm talking about would-be thieves, would-be robbers, would-be rapists, would-be abusers. In situations ranging from, in-home abuse to understanding and trying to survive as best as possible civil unrest. It's a reality that we live in where there are threats. And because of the lifestyle that most of us lead, that leave came into from live and lead, crossing together in my head. But we are often in places and situations where how do I put this? Weapons people default to may not or simply aren't available. Many of us work in situations where concealed carry would not be prudent. Not only not prudent, but not allowed. For example, I've worked in many schools, and I know there's discussion on arming staff in schools. And frankly, most of the staff are so busy trying to keep up with being school staff, they don't have time to properly engage the issues, the safety of to engage the training you would need to be able to act proactively with weapons. And further, the nature of someone inclined to be a teacher makes them also, if they are good, empathetic enough that using dangerous to deadly force to neutralize a student who is a threat would be beyond their means. I don't want to say they just aren't sociopathic enough to do that, but it's just true. The kind of people who make good teachers do not usually make the best assassins. I don't know how it's a complex subject. And I will say this. I believe the Second Amendment is what guarantees the First. I believe that it is one of the major bulwarks against both tyranny and oppression, as well as simple evil. People need to be able to survive. And I don't think it should be infringed. This will offend some people. I'm okay with that. I have no issue offending people. However, I believe that understanding the applications of the Second Amendment goes far beyond the scope of mere firearms and up into projectile weapons. We need instead to understand a mentality of you are always armed with something, because many of us lack the size and strength to have our mere presence be a deterrent. I have a gentleman, he is a dear friend, I've known him a long time, my buddy John. The thing about my buddy John is he's always been a big guy, a large, intimidating figure scaled to age. And he's always been treated with the reverence, perhaps, that is afforded someone of his size, totally irrelevant of the level of training and capacities he has. It is a privilege. Big guy privilege might be a way to look at it, that the smaller among us simply don't have. In a fair fight, force to force, the smaller, weaker opponent will lose. This is why, inerringly, we must be guided and plotting to cheat, to use whatever force multipliers we can use safely, legally, and as compassionately as possible to maintain our own safety. And the only way to do this is to train your body to have scaled, appropriate, reflexive actions. Not to overreact and not to underreact. And when I say overreact, there was a time in my life where if someone startled me from behind for a split second, they may risk bodily harm from me, as my reflexes and my mentality was incredibly tightly coiled. So that if startled, I went immediately to fight or flight, and back then my legs didn't work real good. So I immediately went from 0 to I have to apply overwhelming force now. Now this was, for the most part, 20 years ago or longer. This was also a big part of why I took up fencing, so that I could control that, harness it, and turn hypervigilance into vigilance. But to do that, I had to train my body so I wasn't clumsy anymore. And I had to understand the root of why I was a klutz. And the vast majority of it, I realize now, ties to the mentality of being, at the time, an undiagnosed neurodivergent. Someone with, bare minimum, we'll say, ADD. By learning to focus and harness my functioning of my perception, it stopped exhausting me. It stopped, because being scared all the time is exhausting. And when you go through the kind of stuff I went through in my own traumas, I've talked a good deal about some of them. Some of them I don't elaborate on. And that is a mix of I share a great deal, but I should be allowed moments of privacy. And balancing that with I want people to understand what I have gone through, and how that has shaped my perspective. because I do not have a typical American male perspective on safety, and I carry a lot less delusions than a lot of people. I also, despite it's quite right, in congruence with the empathy and logic of why would I hold someone having endured a assault against them. I would never do that because on a base level, it's illogical. If someone is robbed, someone's house gets robbed, you don't yell at them and call them like they are dirty somehow or unclean. Your house got robbed. Well, you were just asking for it. You had pretty paint. Yet when someone is assaulted, especially a woman, there is a tendency among many people to label them and project all manner of, well, they must have been asking for it kind of garbage onto them. It's as though our purity fixation means they are somehow sullied, somehow lesser. And we punish them many times worse than we punish the offenders. And as a human being with basic empathy, that should be a clear thing. That should be easy to understand. And for me, on that level, it is. On another level, I have been sexually assaulted, or at least attempted, by two men and a woman. Not at the same time, but I talk about it, and I talk about it in a matter-of-fact way to not let people think to not encourage people to feel bad about it. It should not be something that people are punished for. But it means I understand the feeling of that loss of power, that loss of personal sovereignty, that loss of confidence. The way, and not to get too far into it, but the way anyone touching you after can feel remarkably terrifying and painful and gross. And I know what it's like to mostly get over that. So what I do with the intent of building foundation and then encouraging you to find what you need. Because many people need a ramp to go into confidently other martial arts, other systems, other styles, other weapons. And I've had the privilege of affording that to people. Which means my curriculum, which I do have. I have a set order in which I teach. The timing slides by the necessity of the student. The intensity and direction does a lot to and does a lot. I'm sorry. Like I said, I'm fighting the Benadryl. I am quite drowsy right now. Not sleepy. I won't be able to sleep because that's how things work, but I am just a little cloudy-headed. So I apologize. These are very intense emotional things, and I'm speaking about them. So there's always going to be a little bit of catch, a little bit of oof, because that's the reality. The reality is when you've endured certain things, they stay with you no matter what, no matter where. And that is the horror of it. And what I want to do is everything in my power to prevent people from feeling like me, from people being like me in certain categories. So I have to build my curriculum. I had to build my ideas of how I teach from as close to the ground as possible. And I'm not talking about rolling around on the ground like jujitsu. I mean, from people with the absolute, not only the absolute least training, but people who, while they want to learn consciously, will have unconscious barriers mentally impeding their progress. Because when someone's confidence has been destroyed, everything you do to build them up to a measure will feel like a lie. Especially when, the destruction of that has come alongside people manipulating relatively good feelings for service. Going through that. Okay. I'm sorry, I was downloading something and I guess it just ended. Going through that breaks a part of your reality. So, for the people who haven't, they don't understand. Why are you doing this? Why are you focusing on this? Why are you babying them? Because in many ways, they've never done it before. So they are essentially a baby. And I'm not being demeaning. What I mean is when a toddler or when somebody's learning to write, okay? When somebody's learning to write or draw, and if you're talking to them and they're working to learn to write or draw or read, I've worked with adults who, because of mental limitations, they're trying to learn to be functional, but they take time. You don't kick them. I mean, because they've never done it before. They need that time. And you shouldn't kick yourself for not being immediately good at something or not being what you expect. You have to find out what you are before anything else. It's like I tell people, a lot of people want to fight. Good for them. I have to teach them how to stand. Well, I want to go sword fight. That's fine. I have to teach you how to stand. And once you know how to stand, we're going to teach you how to walk. And once you know how to walk, then you might learn some lunges. But do your lunges. They're good for you. Then you can learn to dance. Because that's all footwork is. Footwork is dancing. Same with the swords. You need to learn your ranges. How can you expect to tell if you can hit somebody with a stick if you can't tell if I can hit something with a hand? If I don't know exactly how far, or I can guesstimate visually because I've trained myself here, how can I know this hand part will miss and this one will hit? Training, practice, experience. You have to build these processes up from the ground up sliding scale for what people need, which means tailored individual training. And I can do that in part because the actual system I use that I have found effective enough for what I've done in multiple groups and situations, both training, sword fighting, fun wise, and actual real world life or death self defense instances. I have found these work relatively well. I am not now or ever going to be a special forces type operator. What I do does not have those skills, in part because my body and its damage could not keep up with the requirements of some of those skills, and because the mix of my personal empathy and my boundaries of my religion and faith preclude me from allowing certain levels of, frankly, bloodthirst, even in self-defense, which I understand rationally and practically is not a courtesy I expect my opponents to ever show me. But you have to grasp this philosophy to then look into what I train in and why I train it. While I actually have no problem with great swords, and I even find real world applications for it as part of a system, I don't favor it. And I don't favor greatsword over other styles, largely because in my world and where I travel and what I have to do, a lot of that is impractical for my setting. As a self-defense mindset, it's a lot of work into skills that don't carry over. This is why you will find that I prefer to train with shorter weapons, even though I'm I am 5'7", 5'8" on a good day, depending on how my back is aligned. With my different joints that can get out of socket, I can get down to 5'6", 5'5". It's like, that is a lot of spread. Yes, because my back is bent, my hips pop out of socket, my knees pop out of socket. It literally affects my height greatly. The curvature of my spine due to spasms and things. But I still function because I have to. And because where I learned, the people I associated with, and you will find this in a lot of the martial styles, were so much larger than me, as a rule. There were exceptions, of course, one or two, and I mean that literally. My first swordmaster, whom, while we had our differences, I still respect what he taught me, and what I learned from him at his journey. That would be Dennis Yakus, also known as Aidan McDougall, in the SCA, and Jody and Bob Houghton. Yeah, I'll drop their names. I learned a lot from them. And though we don't socialize anymore, I never stopped respecting what they do and how they do it. I would just had different situations, and my mission, my goal to help people, I tried to meet via the rules of the group, And when I could not do so, I had to choose between profiting for my own interests and seeking other means to be of service. Thus, in part, that's why the Historical Fencing Guild was formed. But if we are to progress, we have to acknowledge what we've learned from and move forward. It is, how do I want to put this? Sorry, I got to work on this one. It is a matter of intensity. It is a matter of perspective. And it is a matter of, like all things, victory conditions. The larger number of people that I associated with, their individual victory conditions could be defined as self-improvement and self-aggrandization. They were chasing the point of the spear of what is the best out there. And they wanted the accolades. Those who know me know, and this is not any reverse psychology, I usually flee from accolades whenever possible. I'm incredibly uncomfortable with that. Leftovers from just who and what I've become and what I've done. But I relish seeing people I know get acknowledged. And I want to see people grow. I want to see people get better. And be safer. That is where my arrogance comes into play. And that, in part, is the secret truth behind why I gear so much of what I do to people just starting out. It's I physically cannot protect everyone I'd like to protect, so I do what I can to teach them to protect themselves. Hello, Kakanaz. How you create them? I'm not quite sure what you are referring to. If you're talking about my techniques, or are you talking about the equipment? My techniques were created by looking at dozens and dozens and dozens of different martial arts guides based around swordsmanship, most of them Western, and focusing on what they agree on, and then simplifying that as much as humanly possible to make it easiest for me to teach as many people as quickly as possible how to have a good foundation. And then I just took notes. The simple sword was based on 15 years of notes to get here. I am now at about 25 years, going on 25 years, of instruction. I'll probably be updating the simple sword soon. I'm thinking of doing an omnibus type object that integrates the simple sword, the fighting axe, the simple spear, integrates some aspects that are going into the Rapid Rapier, which is another book I'm working on, into sort of an Uber manual. But I looked at the rules of at the time I was an SCA fighter, a CA light fighter in the Middle Kingdom. I was a fencer. And I developed systems around that set of rules and around the equipment and around what I felt could be used practically in self-defense to address the conflicts that I myself had experienced. Growing up, I experienced a vast quantity of varied and colorful violence. Instead of letting that consume me, I learned to understand it. And, sorry, I have a fly on my leg. Doing so led me to opportunities where I was given the chance to work with people that would have been otherwise discarded by my then instructor. And this is not Dennis, this is the gentleman who I knew before then. I use the term gentleman loosely, and I do not use his name because he deserves nothing but to be chiseled off the face of history. I won't say existence because I don't want to be that misconstrued as a threat. But I know the day I find out that that person has passed will be a day that I feel the world is a better place. Not very nice of me, but is quite accurate. That's all I can say. Now, I'd far rather them change their attitudes and be kinder, but I've long since given up that as an option. Instead, it gave me an opportunity, and on a level, I'm actually grateful, because had that person not been such an absolute fink, I would not have been able to have the opportunity to meet the people I meet, to find the devotion to the service I have, because I believe you can help people feel better, and that is a wonderful thing to do. You can help people live better. That is a wonderful thing to do. But there are a lot of people who just seem geared to making people feel better contingent on their benefit to the helper. Many people use this knowledge as a hidden commodity to build people into tools. And my goal, and it's part of how I maintain my functionality doing what I do, is literal planned obsolescence. Integrated into my approach is that I focus on the basic and the practical. I do. And hopefully in a manner that can be of benefit to anyone getting started and leaning towards any group, because you'll always have to change things for the conventions of the group and personalities and things. But I explain to just about every student, now I'm a 44-year-old. I'm a 44-year-old disabled man. My goal is to give you the skills so that you can use your physical advantage and those skills to regularly beat me, because you should be able to. at least to give a good enough showing that you can feel you are close to my martial equal or better. But if I do my job right, as part of that, I hope to earn your trust and respect of any of my students enough to let me continue to be of service, because what I can do mentally, what I can assess, what I can catch often outruns what I can physically accomplish anymore. I may not be fast enough, strong enough, tall enough, whatever, to physically exploit your weaknesses. But I am gifted in perception and analysis. So if people can listen, I can continue to be of service to them, improving far beyond where I got in. And most of that is in part due to my limitations physically and my predilections towards service. If I took all my energy and I had focused it solely on myself, I would be probably still in the SCA and probably quite highly ranked or something akin to that. That is not said with any regret. That is looking at the road I didn't travel and saying I wouldn't want to travel it under any circumstances. Because with what I'm doing and how I'm doing it, I've helped people gain confidence. I've helped people gain perspective. I've helped people walk paths they may have never thought they could. And at the end of the day, I can look in the mirror and feel like maybe I earned enough to warrant getting up in the morning the next day. Overtime, you know? And that's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing to say, hey, I put in the effort. I made the world maybe a little better for somebody. That matters. And I hope you guys are out there not only training and improving yourselves, but looking for opportunities to make your approach to the world a little better. So guys, it's been an hour. My chat is very quiet. I appreciate the folks who stuck around. Please like, share, and subscribe to this. And you know what, guys? Do your drills. Keep your guard up. Be kind to yourself and each other. And thank you for supporting your local swordmaster. I'll be back next week with more things. We'll keep an eye out on this project to get a Bilbao belt. Honestly, this is my busiest period. I have conventions that I am either running or attending. Basically, for the next 2 weeks, I'm either in a prep week or next month worth of time, because I have a little tiny convention I run, and I don't even have a relay for that here. So give me just a moment. I have to go here. Wrong button. Sorry, they moved my buttons around. Anyway, there we go. Just because I feel weird being shrunk with the other logo going, but here we are. Library Con, October 11th, 2025, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Benton County Public Library, 102 North Van Buren Avenue, Fowler, Indiana, 47944. I will be running a booth selling my books, selling artwork, selling games, and possibly Nerf blasters. Actually, probably Nerf blasters. To raise money in part for my programs and in part for supporting what I do with my my son. And then November 1st through and 2nd, I will be at LodgeCon, which is a gaming event in at the Will County Fairgrounds in Peatone, Illinois. So that's a big event for my year. I'm looking very forward to it, but that does mean between now and then I have to do a lot of artwork. I have to make a lot of materials and do a lot of setup. So if you're interested in LibraryCon, it is free to attend. We have 2 vendors besides myself set up. We have room for 2 to 4 more. It's a very small site. But again, it's free, and you have a chance to talk with some very accomplished vendors on how to do that sort of thing. While off topic, it is important for me to remind you guys of what all I do. I will be back Monday over on the Nicholas Tucker YouTube channel. My viewers on Kick and Twitch, I'll still be right here. Because of YouTube's YouTubeliness, I have my Historical Fencing Guild as a secondary channel just as a prevention of idiocy. So if I get taken down, I don't lose everything. Beyond that, guys, I'm going to see you all real soon, and I hope you have a good evening. Hope we've got some comments. Have a great night and get some rest. We'll see. Thanks. And toodles, folks.